Hey everybody, I'm Dan Sweet, Director of Public Relations and Communications for Helicopter Association International, and welcome to HAI at Work webinars. Today's webinar is being recorded. I am actually live on the show floor in Cologne, Germany for European Rotors 2022. This is a production from the European Helicopter Association and EASA, and this is the second year that they've held the show. Last year was also here in Cologne. Next year, they've just announced that next will be in Madrid, Spain, which is going to be really exciting. And there's a lot of activity going on here. We just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was some of the latest information that was going on. We had a panel yesterday from representatives from HAI, EASA, EHA, and the FAA. And so we thought that that information would be really valuable. So tell you what, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go through our speakers list here real fast, and we will talk about some of the other information that will be coming up here in just a second. Again, title of today is the International Collaboration European Rotors Panel. The speakers were Jim Viola, President and CEO of HAI. You're familiar with him, obviously. Christian Mueller, who is the Chairman and Technical Director of the European Helicopter Association. David Solar, who is the Head of General Aviation and Vertical Takeoff and Landing Aircraft with EASA. And Mel Johnson, who's Director of Compliance and Airworthiness for Aircraft Certification Service at FAA. Also moderating today is Dr. Frank Lamont. He's the show director for European Rotors, works with the European Helicopter Association. Because we're recording today, we can't take any questions. Now, that said, if you want to send me a question, I will do my best to get it answered for you. My email address is there. Take a picture on your screen. I think you guys have all seen my email address with the registrations to come out for our webinars. And so it's the same one. Obviously, this is being recorded. We will also record the entire webinar, and it will be available to anybody who wants to see it at their convenience. It usually takes us a day to get that back to everybody. Now, there is one thing that's going on with this webinar with the audio. First of all, the recording is from a bird's eye view. Literally, you'll get the bird's eye view of the stage where the presenters are speaking. And unfortunately, we had an audio issue. And so the first couple of minutes of this is going to have a boom, 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 boom audio issue. It does go away right about the time that they finished introducing each other. And so it's not going to, you're not going to miss out on the topics they're talking about. But you will notice that for a couple of minutes, and I do apologize for that. That said, hey, we'll bring you back after the presentation and wrap things up. And until then, looking forward to having you enjoy this presentation.
Welcome everybody to the second edition of European Rotors. It's a real pleasure to have you all here to talk about the market, to talk about latest developments in regulation. And it's such a pleasure really to have this edition again. But I think I made one mistake in planning. I put ourselves after women in aviation. And there's nothing we can do anymore after that, because that really was a highlight. Thanks again for the panelists just that. So great to have you here. I think we had a fantastic kickoff with mentioning that we're going to Madrid next year from the 28th to the 30th of November. That was, I think, really everybody said, wow, because European Rotors starts to travel. But we'd like now the opportunity, as we have really the leaders here in the helicopter industry, to take the advantage to learn what has happened in last year and how's the outlook be and how we can standardize and cooperate better. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce the panelists by themselves. Christian and David, may you start as the co-organizer of this event.
Chris Mueller, Chairman of the EHA. Together with EASA, we have been working to organize the show, and the European Helicopter Association is the helicopter association in Europe, representing manufacturers, associations, and individual operators and suppliers.
David Solar, EASA. I'm the head of General Aviation and VTOL, which is taking care of certification from the business jet up to the small drones, and including obviously rotorcraft, which are displayed today. And we are also partnering with the EHA to co-organize European Rotors with a dedicated safety conference, where we hope you'll attend a lot and learn a lot today also.
Thank you. And then, as we said, we have the chance to be a little bit present here globally. Jim is still checking the technology.
Being a little
Thank
bit
you.
challenged by
Yeah.
the headset,
too.
but I'm James Viola, the President and CEO of HAI, Helicopter Association International. Of course, I'm here because of the partnership we have with the European Helicopter Association and their partnership with EASA. It's great to see everyone here today and also be here as part of the collaboration of what we're trying to do to make sure that the helicopter industry does have the ability to share best practices and try to work globally, and having a show here in Cologne, #2, I was here last year as well, has been great. And so if anything that you need and questions we'll take here, but again, glad to be here for you.
And good afternoon. My name is Mel Johnson. I'm with the FAA Aircraft Certification Service. I'm the Director of Compliance and Airworthiness, so my division has a responsibility for certification of aircraft in the United States, and we also do validation of aircraft coming from other parts of the world, such as EASA. So work closely with David Solar and the team there. So really grateful to be here today and be able to be a participant in this program.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let's now start. Last year we had an OEM panel because the industry is really supporting this event, but this year again we have the leaders or the presidents from the association, so we have actually a real global view. Christian, believe it or not, 2022 is almost ended. So what would you say, what has been the biggest challenges for you, and just to mention a little bit what were on your task list and how did it go?
Well, this year I started as chairman of EHA, and that is always a steep learning curve because you have to get to know the people and you have to know where, what you're supposed to do. It's not like Peter left me a clear job profile because it's a job under development, I have to say. And what we did this year, and I think this is something that we really were able to build out, is to go out and talk to people and make sure that they understand that there is an EHA. I think one of the highlights that I had in the first part of the year was to do the trip, with you, Jim, and with you, David, to go to France, visit, the helicopter event in Cholet, and just able to talk to industry leaders on the way there. And I think, what feedback we get from the industry is that we really should, drive more initiatives. We should drive more, to bring the industry forward. So that for me has also been a clear mandate to move on. Yeah.
Thank you. Jim, touching it a little bit more globally, what has been the most challenges for HAI, and what will be the highlights which you could mention? I could spoiler one and say Dallas, for instance, and you may agree, but give us a little bit of a wider overview. What has been the most challenges, and why would you say, wow, that was great?
Well, actually, I think the part is that industry, and some of the feedback from my visits is that industry is doing well. A lot of people are busy, and that a lot of things right now, I've had people tell me that the helicopters, they can't fly all their helicopters because they don't have enough pilots and or mechanics. So the fact that society is asking for our help, is time now that we need to step forward. And some of the reasons that we're meeting here with the regulators is how can they help us bring these new equipment with the new technology safely to the operators out there, because they need help on that end, as well as workforce development. Make sure that we get the younger folk involved in aviation, show them all the great things that they can do for society, working on sustainability issues.
Yeah.
So there's so many new challenges and advanced air mobility. You've got urban air mobility, advanced air mobility, some of the new phrases you hear out there. And so it was great to have the Secretary of Transportation from the U.S. put me on what the FAA has, which is the Advanced Aviation Advisory Council. So where we get to bring in industry, represent your concerns with the regulator in the United States. And then, of course, the relationship we have with David and EASA and Patrick Key also, so we can help.
Thank you. David, also, I guess, beside co-organizing again European Rotors, there were a lot of activities inside EASA to be conducted. Where would you say mission achieved, or where would you say challenges remaining?
That's a difficult question. I mean, we have always challenge remaining. We have to keep the pace with industry, and currently industry is quite all over the place. From the traditional kind of rotorcraft that we can see here, but we can see also drones, eVTOLs in some aspects. So some fields where we are at the mature states with some innovation kicking in. Some fields where we are building it from scratch. And it's always challenging not to over-regulate, under-regulate. That's really a delicate balance. So I think it's work in progress, but the most important part, it's work in progress in collaboration with industry, with you, and other globally, that we could achieve the fine balance between the success and the failure. So.
Thank you so much. Mel, I have to admit I'm not so much into the FAA business, but I guess there is a lot of things also to be done on the regulator side across the Atlantic. Could you tell us a little bit more what has been on your to-do list for 2022?
Well, I'll just say that the innovation and work that's going on in rotorcraft and in the design and the new space of eVTOL is significant, and it's also significant at a time of increased difficulty in finding to find enough engineering expertise. The demand for engineering expertise in the United States is really high, and with the unprecedented amount of innovation going on, we really see quite a difficult labor market for engineering expertise. So, and we've got a lot of people retiring. So, from a human perspective, or real life perspective, we are working very hard to keep up with the demand for the services that we provide. But there really is no time to rest when you're a regulator. You need to keep working and pushing towards advancing safety. We have a great partnership with EASA to try to help collaborate together to work towards a safer environment for rotorcraft and for these new aircraft. And so we've got a lot of work to go. Industry keeps innovating, which is great. And I see that as a key aspect for helping us improve safety across the board.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Jim already mentioned, and also, of course, Christian, that we have a lot of things to do. And you both were mentioning that neither the helicopter nor all these VTOL concepts, of course not the VTOL concepts of next generation, are the future of vertical flight. So there is a future for both of them. Means for the classical helicopter, but as well for this VTOL concept. From a regulator side, what is on your list for 2023 onwards, David?
So in 2023, we will carry on the eVTOL tasks, develop also the UAS, because there are the drone aspects of it towards the more certified category, big stuff coming in. On the rotorcraft side, trying to work on the operational side more with innovative training methods, tools, and crediting to reduce training cost. To maximize the training also efficiency towards also more mission-specific training rather than pure piloting skills. So that's all these elements are under place to make things safer. And we know also that there is a workforce issue all around the place, pilot mechanics. So how to ease that? I think not for 2023, but at least how to look forward to this challenge and adapt towards that. That's the key. And the core areas we are going to investigate.
Christian, how does that match with EHA agenda, and what is beside cooperating with the regulator on their views and forecasts or missions to be accomplished?
Well, everything that David publishes, we have to implement. So, we have our hands full anyway. I just listening to your presentation, we already know what we're going to do next year, so that's fine. No. I think it's really important that we as EHA were able to drive our own initiatives. I think one thing that we really want to do is, as you said, training. That is really important. We need to be able to train people. And I think one thing that we also have to do is sustainability. We have to come to an agreement how we can start to become more carbon neutral. There's a lot of things already out there. Like sustainable aviation fuel. There was a panel this morning on this, but there's more to be done. I mean, every every hangar that we have is a potential way to to create solar energy or to do whatever. So we need to expand our horizon and make sure that we capture these opportunities. And I think that's something that we would like to focus on next year.
Thank you so much. Jim, we have a holy, you could say, football coach. Meanwhile, that he was really known for his sounding easy, but also very wise proverbs. And one was, he was a football player. After the game is before the game. So I could say, after Cologne, there is Atlanta. But I guess there's also much more on HAI's agenda for 2023.
Well, yes, you did say Atlanta, and Atlanta, just like it is here at European Rotors, is an opportunity for you to come and network with the suppliers, the manufacturers, other professionals in the field, and share lessons with the education classes that he also was doing yesterday as well as today. So we look at that as, as an association, my job is to, what do you need to be successful? How can I help you do the collaboration and the education that you need to continue to go on? So I look forward to always hearing from industry as far as, what keeps you up at night and what can we do as your association to try to help that. And a lot of it's trying to be proactive, as you heard as well, with the FAA as well as the EASA. Where can you provide the roadmap that we can help with the regulators, with the on the government affairs side. We're in a line with the European Helicopter Association as well, so that we can help the regulators with the proper resources when it comes to making sure what the priorities are. So hearing again, industry should be driving, make sure that we have the expertise. At the same time, we know the regulators need that as well. And so that collaboration and the working together to get the equipment and get the safety add-ons out to industry, that's our full-time job.
Thank you. Mel, so David will issue papers, regulations. Will you give also a lot of stuff to read for HAI team?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we just put out yesterday our first airworthiness criteria for an eVTOL project. That's just put out in the Federal Register yesterday. We got many more to come. All the innovation coming along, it provides a lot of opportunity for us to try to figure out how to best develop a methodology to get these aircraft certified. But on top of that, the drive for safety, I just wanted to mention, is a very collaborative approach. It's very long ago are the days where I could just come up with a solution to solve the safety problem myself. Safety really, it gets promoted by a collaboration. So for example, the U.S. helicopter safety team is a great area, and we'll see in the coming year a lot of work as we work towards sort of data-driven efforts to try to help find solutions to safety problems that are difficult to do with just something simple. And we definitely need the cooperation to be able to get all the perspectives from operators, maintainers, OEMs to try to help solve some of those problems.
Thank you so much. So this panel is really a big chance for us now to go a little bit more into details about the chances, of course, and the challenges to really harmonize, collaborate, and standardize, not only in terms of associations working together, but also to harmonize, especially regulations. I could say, starting by Germany, it's not even a given that helicopter operations or even audits will have the same results from north side to south side. You could say then from Germany, if you transfer to Spain and so onwards, it's not clear whether everything is accepted. So this is the first mission. But here we have the panel with the experts, with the leading people, which can give us their ideas how we can achieve standardization, harmonization, and making it easier for everybody involved in the rotorcraft scene, actually to educate himself and to really to use the knowledge he has gained to standardize on regulations. And I would like this to become now an open discussion, also integrating our dear listeners. And who wants to go first with potentially either a little bit philosophic approach or also a practical one?
Looks like David's got a comment there.
Okay. No.
So standardization is going only with as already said, collaboration and communication between each other. So on the specific rotorcraft side, we've at least in Europe, we have a challenge with 27 countries, 27 cultures, 27 way of understanding the English, 27 way of implementing it. So that's a starting point which is quite far, and we recognize that. At the same time, the rotorcraft community is a small one. So that's a change compared to the very large commercial aviation. So we have started to put the inspectors, because at the end of the day, that's the inspectors who is really close to the operator, daily communicating, understanding the regulation, asking stuff, are the key in the system. And we are starting to put them together. And it's a point which is stemming from the simplification work stream of the rotorcraft safety roadmap. Putting them together, analyze why we have differences in some implementations, and try to take the best practices all over the place, make it a standard for everybody available, and push it down to the field in a harmonized way with a common understanding, because that's key. That's the first step. What we are also doing is relying a bit more on SMS. SMS is implemented, and identification of the risk, if it's harmonized also, you have the same kind of implementation behind. Helping also the small operators, because rotorcraft, unfortunately, they have it's 90% of small operators that do not have the workforce to have a full-time SMS manager. Providing them guidance, templates, to say, okay, at least here is the basics. Now, your job, which is not a full-time, is to tailor it to your specific operations, and that's where we could have a dialogue together within the system. So that's the point. It's a cultural change, which is difficult, because it's easier to be doing your job in isolation compared to going to the others. That's a methodology change, so that's a lot of changes, but I think it's for a good sake, at the end of the day, safer and, as you mentioned, better harmonized practices, so that easing the operations from cross-border operations would be a real added value.
Christian and Jim, I mean, there is a reason for EHA and HAI to have announced the cooperation or the closer cooperation last year of European Rotors, but also now listening to David, Christian, what are your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. I think, transparency, agreement, and then implementation. So we need to have transparency on where we are with the different types of approaches, agree on best practice, and then implement. That's basically what we have to do. And that can go cross-border, but that can also go cross-Atlantic. Because let's be honest, the way we fly helicopters are not that different than, in Europe and in the States and in India and in Asia. It usually flies the same way. So actually, I'm all for creating international standards. How to best fly a HESLO operation, based on best practice of all of these thousands of hours that we have around the globe, because people know how to do this. Now we need to agree on how to, and then actually if we can then roll it out, that would be great, And it will help us not just with regards to safety, because obviously we can get much more safety data down the road, because if everybody's doing it the same way, we get more data, we can optimize better, but also with regards to workforce. I mean, if a pilot learns how to fly a HESLO operation in one way in Asia, he's actually able to transfer to the United States, help out for a half a year, and then go to Europe and also help out there. Obviously, we have to do all the licensing and everything, but, helicopter operations are based on experience. You need to know how to fly it, and you need to know. But if that is more or less standardized, it's much easier to have a workforce that is able to work globally. I know this is quite a bit in the future, but I think this is where we should be going to.
Jim, from your end, how potentially would you agree or disagree, or would you say we are far better already in the States?
Oh, no. I mean, I actually, do more of the international standards. So Those are the words that go with what was described there. And on that international standard is that, we're looking for the equivalent level of safety. The helicopters, rotorcraft, and the future eVTOL do so many missions out there that it is really hard for the regulator and each of the CAAs to be able to say, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be done only. You can't do it any other way. Well, it's industry's responsibility to gather that information. What is the equivalent level of safety? What is the mission set that's actually happened? And a lot of times we'll find, especially in the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, well, they'll say helicopter. And I'm like, no, don't say helicopter. What's the mission the helicopter was doing? And what's the proper way, or what's the equipment needed for that mission? You can't have all helicopters equipped the same way. And as part of that, that's one of the things we're looking at underneath the vertical aviation safety team, where we basically look at, I'm an advisor there with an ICAO rep, Miguel, and we just try to do is bring that collaboration and cooperation together. And one of the things that we actually got listed as an international organization by the NTSB is what's called the safety safety rating system, which is kind of being based off of how they do it with cars. But the hard part is cars are used for one purpose on the road, where we're looking at, again, many different types of helicopters used for many different type of missions. But that's one of the challenges, which is, again, an international challenge, maybe based on the mission set. And then what does it all go down to? You talked about SMS. Well, SMS is data. We need data. We need HUMS data on the equipment. Do we need it on all the equipment? Do private owners? So we've got the spectrum from individual owner, private helicopter, to the big offshore stuff that Heli Offshore has done such a great job on with the data collection in their industry. And I think they're an example for what we continue to need to do in the rotorcraft community of being able to, number one, collect some data and be able to make decisions based on data. And then that's where we're totally in support with data monitoring, totally in support of the SMS. Simple SMS at the small user, and we call small, just so people know, is 5 helicopters or less in a mission. And then the one thing that hasn't been touched on is the airspace that the drones, the eVTOLs, the AAMs, we're all going to share that, and we need to share it together. So we should start sharing some data together, and that way we can work on that collaboration. And we welcome them in. I welcome them in. I want our operators, the operators, members of HAI, to be the operators of those vehicles as well, so that way the lessons learned come with that part of the industry.
Mel, how can the regulator, shall I say, support this view, or do you have a completely different one?
No, just to build on what has been shared here, and I'll go back to the U.S. helicopter safety team. So much of safety is really driven by multi-dimensional problems. And so one of the ways I think that's really key for cooperation is to get the perspectives of each of the different professions that help support this industry, whether that's people designing and modifying or maintaining or operating the aircraft, the airspace integration. All that really needs to, to solve some of the safety problems, you really need to have those multiple perspectives because oftentimes the solution is a solution that comes with contributions, individual contributions from different people in a coordinated way. And just to go off Jim's comments on data and data monitoring, and on a fixed wing side, I know that we've been doing some work with some of the data monitoring, and we've been able to find hot spots where there's common problems. And so by very careful data monitoring, there's a way for us to be able to identify issues, get information to operators to try to really help improve safety. And it oftentimes is a combination of, on the engineering side, helping equip aircraft in a affordable, easy way, and then making it operationally available, the data to be able to be analyzed. So now operators can start to identify, these certain operations in this circumstance is it safer this way, or here's an area to be watching out for. Similarly on maintenance, some of that data collection in the maintenance facilities helps us start to identify areas where there's possible problems with fatigue or other kind of systems issues, and so that kind of collaboration and cooperation amongst all the people involved in the industry really helps us drive safety forward.
Thank you so much. I mean, you mentioned safety a lot of times, of course. European Rotors is called the VTOL Show and Safety Conference. We actually invested much more this year in this year edition for safety or on behalf of training as we had our own training day yesterday. The courses were booked really nice. However, I also get some feedback. Frank, why shall I visit this course as long as I don't get a real certificate, which is internationally? I even touching it from the German helicopter side, I could say I did last year a flight instructor course here, and I wanted to have half of the flight instructor course here at European Rotors. However, we got the feedback, it will only be valid if it's held in German. So I think we have some things to do, and especially I really like the way the trainings are done at Heli Expo, because you get a certificate. So that makes it much more easier. How can we achieve this kind of status on trainings, on courses, that they are accepted? And I would say not only in Germany, but really European-wide.
That's something we can put on the table. We didn't have this feedback, so now we have to take this. Obviously, do homework on that and say, okay, what can we do to really implement stuff that are recognized European-wide, at least, so that yes, at the end of the day, it brings value to the systems, and people are coming for additional value on the safety side, and which is recognized in the system. That's very important. Like the crediting, for simulator, we need to take benefit of that. Otherwise, we are missing a point, and that's a very important point we need to address for the next editions to come.
Thank you so much. Christian, what can EHA do to stimulate and stipulate that a little bit?
I mean, obviously, first of all, we have to work through our members here, because we have to find a balance between what the national associations can do, because they also have their members, and I think when we do training, all year round, that should also be part of the national associations, because that's also a way for them to connect with their operators, with their members as well. On the other hand, if we talk about training at European Rotors, then obviously we have different things we have to do. So we have to find training providers, and then also make sure that we have the respective approvals to actually do these courses. So that will have to be done over the course of the next year to be ready for 2023.
Jim, as we like to learn, really, we appreciate the support from HIA extremely. We take a lot of the things which you do very successfully. For instance, we have our own first little, but it's their rotor safety zone, which is a concept which plays off very well. So we do that here with daily briefings, daily courses, hands-on trainings, especially for PPLs. So what is your view on how did you develop this full training day and make sure that people get it credited, that they get the hooks on? So how was this evolved?
Well, the safety center was certainly something, again, that part of the U.S. helicopter safety team was looking for opportunities to, again, make sure that they can get people hooked on the education side. And then we had a lot of safety courses that you can attend that are no charge to. So we did that again with the safety challenge, with giving out coins for all the safety courses that you went to. And then on the mandatory side, I'm not sure. I mean, is that a fact that there's a location specified in a regulation that your training has to be conducted in a specific nation?
Believe it or not.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that's something that even you work it down to the lowest level, or the So that's something to certainly look into. That the location. When you're talking about education qualifications, hopefully we can fix that on the rulemaking side.
And what was the support from the FAA also? How do you accept these kind of trainings and education, and how do you support?
Yeah, I know that our team has been working on the U.S. side to make sure that we have training available and to find ways to encourage and make it easy. What we don't want to do is make training difficult, so it puts up another barrier to stop people from participation. So I know that they're working hard at that. We want to get people into high quality training and make it easy for them to participate and to get qualified for receiving credit for that.
Thank you so much. As I said before, this shall be also the chance to do it a little bit interactive, because this is, dear visitors, your chance potentially to nail the panelists down with your questions, or at least raise some. Do we have some questions? Then I would pass by and come with the mic. Is there anything? Would you signal me? Are you completely fine with what we said? Tim, thank you so much. I'm coming over.
Hey Frank, thank you very much. Thanks for the insight, everybody. I guess my question is a little bit specific, but we're all here today understanding that the industry is going through a couple of big evolutions, right? There's a huge technology evolution. We talked about the sustainability evolution as well. I think we all recognize that the regulators are working super hard to manage new technologies as they come in, but we all recognize that the current aircraft types are going to be around probably for the next 20, 30 years even. Is there anything we can do as an industry to ensure that we can keep those fleets to the latest safety standard easily, not cheaply, but in a cost-effective way? Because we know that certification, very important process, but is there something we can look at to ease that process, make it easier for manufacturers to deliver product safety enhancements that operators get the benefit from?
Well, I'll just make one comment on that, and maybe I can pass over to David for his comments. One of the things that we've been looking at within the FAA system is trying to find ways to innovate on the regulatory side to help reduce the barrier for safety innovation. And that's not exclusive just the new space. It's not just intended to be supportive of eVTOLs or drones. We've worked very hard at trying to find ways to look at our regulatory structure, look for barriers that are actually inhibiting the inclusion of new safety equipment into the aircraft. We've got a couple of different policies that we've been putting out that try to recognize that, in particular in Part 27, trying to find ways to help manufacturers feel motivated to include that new equipment. None of us have a crystal ball to be able to look into the future and see what the space is going to be like in 10 years from now. And it would not be surprising to me at all if we still have very similar equipment in addition to new type of equipment. And so, at least from my perspective, we won't stop supporting nor innovating in this space at all, because I think some of the mission that these aircraft are currently performing will continue to be performed by these aircraft for quite some time to go.
I'd like to give the FAA an attaboy for what they have. It's called a non-operationally required safety enhancing equipment. And so that was a good move there, and that helps certainly the private owners and small operators that want to additionally put in the safety enhancing equipment without have to make sure that everything's approved.
Yes, on the other side, we did a similar way. Two things. We have published last year what we call the net safety benefit certification memo, enabling OEMs to come up, or STC holder, by the way, to come up with safety enhancement equipment systems and to enable them to minimize the cost and speed up the certification of it. In parallel, for the CS27, we are just about to release a new 1309 for the one who are familiar with that, on the safety targets, introducing the safety continuum in a similar way that is in place since a while in the CS Part 23 kind of stuff, easing also the access to new kind of equipment. Just a remark, on the net safety benefit, we didn't have a lot of system coming in, so it's also an industry mindset. And sometimes the industry is also, funny enough, pushing on some evolutions that are not necessarily towards safety, but more on some other aspect. And I give you an example. I was within Airbus helicopter and visiting their research kind of center, and I was showcased a system, and I say, this one, you know what? I'd like to see it in the next year, not decades, year, in the market, because that's addressing exactly what we see as a major accident contributor. And then when so I'm pushing them. I really push them and say, show me the timeline, where are you? We will ease that, go for it. When I see the timeline, we are still years behind, say, guys, why are you taking 5 years to develop that? I mean, come on, can we focus on it? So the timeline, the industry timeline is also challenging. I don't know why. that's very surprising to see that, you know, some systems are able to be developed in a few years. Some takes much longer, and you don't know why. But the global lead time of the helicopter industry is long, and that's something I'm pushing. You know, OEMs to say, guys, speed it up. Focus maybe not on 25 projects, but let's say 10. Make these, you know, strong commitment resources. We will do the same. We will avoid, you know, wasting time on plenty of projects, but having the key ones in the market. Then we could have the nice to have.
Thank you. Christian?
I think what I'd like to add is that obviously if we improve on safety features, what we have to make sure that we as an industry then also follow up and implement them. Because, you know, if you have a great tool available and you don't implement it, that will actually, you know, then not lead to any safety benefits. So this is something that we as an industry on the operator side have to really look into the mirror and ask ourselves, okay, well, you know, we have to do something too for this whole thing. Now, obviously, you know, we have to find the balance between investing in safety and, you know, continuing to have operating profits. You know, let's be honest, the last couple of years have been a very challenging environment. You know, nowadays with the fuel costs that we have, it's always the question how much cash flow, how much cash do we have available to actually do these investments. So we do have to do more homework on our side, but I think we also have to make sure that we have you know, an economically viable industry that is able to build up reserves and is able to you know, to put money aside for safety. So it's a difficult balance that we have to find.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Jerry?
Yes. When we speak about aviation safety promotion of good practices, in Europe, I think that we have a very great challenge because, in contrary to the US, we have more than 20 languages. We have more than 20 cultures. So the way to address that is very complicated. And for the years, how do you have some trick to make this being addressed for the close future?
So yeah, that's always a challenge. Obviously, we do the English one, that's for sure. We try to translate them as much as we can. And you know, in my team, I have different nationalities. Some of them are volunteers to translate the material, but we don't have all the languages, that's for sure. We try to access via authorities or other volunteers in the associations, but it's still challenging to find the time. We do our best really to try to do it. We are trying to maximize, but there are also some challenges with the workforce associated to that, and how many people we can leverage. And after you mentioned a cultural issue, that's right. Sometimes, you know, you set up the safety promotion with kind of humor kind of approach, and actually you are falling short in some countries because it's not really straight to the point. We have had this experience in the rotor, in the GA roadmap. We have a Sunny Swift, for instance, kind of a little cartoon that we display. I think it's on our twice every 2 months now. It was once a month, now it's every 2 months. And we had some comments on sometimes which were interesting.
Yes, it doesn't always work. But for an event like European Rotors, we have safety courses. And to make the success of such a safety course, we need, I think, 2 prerequisites. First, being available in more than one language, that's obvious. And second, make them recognized by the authorities, as for example, the FAA wings that we do not have in Europe.
Yeah, that's a challenge. First, you know, that's always the questions. We cannot have 27 courses in parallel in the 27 languages. And so which one to pick up, then you will create a lot of interesting debates. or maybe we do a rolling, we could be done. But yeah, that's interesting questions, and that's one of the biggest challenge in Europe, and that's clear.
Thierry had the idea to have an interpreter, but that is cost-wise, simply it's not possible. But it's we had this debate that you said not that many people from France will come over if there's only things offered in English. I mean, I got that feedback from you.
Yes, that is a great difference between the helicopter industry faced to the general aviation and commercial aviation industry. You know, most of the operators are very local. Some are never flying in air-controlled spaces. So they are not experienced in foreign languages, even if in procedures. But some, maybe the youngsters can make the effort to follow something in English if it can be recognized, if the effort can be recognized in their daily life for their licensing, for the safety promotion programs and so.
We were talking about harmonization of rules, which is a crucial point for operators. And one of the aspects which, in my view, require more attention is the flight time limitation regulations. We know that EASA is working on that, not only for safety reasons, but also to ensure the same level of competition for operators who want to work cross-border and want to explore new markets in the European territory. So the question is, at what point is EASA now? Because I know that there is a program which has been postponed in the past years to reach this target.
Yes, and the reason is simple, because you have some way flight time limitation. Yes, so night flights or this kind of stuff. If you go in Norway, if you say you limitations to 4 hours night flights per I don't know, then you ended up say the guys are not flying in winter. So that's a very flight time limitation. You know, is always a very controversial topic among the communities. First, because you have the unions versus the operators, kind of debates. Then we have countries which are very specific. If you take Iceland and Norway, Sweden, they have very different challenges especially in winter time, or even in summertime. It's always daytime. So remote operations also HEMS, where so all of that is a very fragmented landscape. So to have a compromise is very difficult. And there is a good chance that you find a bad compromise at the end of the day for everybody. So the best is to have the dialogue to ensure that we keep some very specifics open, some flexible tools. But some wants to have very rigid so that it's fully harmonized everywhere. Some wants to have the flexibility to make sure that the operation in their countries or very specific areas is possible, because at some point in time it's also saving life in some instances, or able to do so. Or supplying, remote areas with limited resources. So we are in the consultation. It's something, but it's going to be a very tricky rule-making task.
Of course, I don't want to make your job, but in my view, one possible solution is to provide for a common set of minimum requirements, rules, which would be applicable to common operations, and then leave to each country the flexibility to implement special rules for special situations, like, for instance, in Northern Europe countries, like a directive instead of a regulation from a EU legislation perspective, something like that. So this might be an idea.
But special rules will always be, and from a German example, even more narrow. So I'm not sure whether I want that.
The problem that we have with the flight time limitation is sometimes, mainly with EMS on firefighting, it may collide with national regulation for which Europe is not empowered.
Yeah, that's adding also an extra complexity on the system.
Any more points? if this is not the case, I would really thank all of you and of course the panelists for being here to wrapping up first day of European Rotors 2022. Enjoy the evening, potentially at a reception or somewhere else, and come back please tomorrow. Visit all of these gentlemen again on the joint booth in the heart of the exhibition and just have fun. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I think that some of the information, the audience was riveted. There was a big audience and they kept a very close attention to this presentation. And we felt that the information was valuable, that you all should have a chance to hear it as well. So let's go ahead and wrap things up for today. Let me share my screen one more time. Here we go. Normally we do have our webinars on the second and fourth Thursdays every month. This month, the fourth Thursday of November falls on a U.S. holiday, Thanksgiving. So we are not going to do something. We're going to back up the webinar from that week to next week. So this is going to be just a 7-day turnaround this time. It's going to be a really interesting one. Commander Brian Wexler, retired U.S. Coast Guard, is going to give you his first person account of a crash that he survived and encountered. And anything that we know, you can always learn something from somebody who's had an accident. Coming up on December 8th, we are going to have another one of our Mill to Civ seminars. This one is for the people who turn wrenches, the mechanics who are thinking about leaving the military and who could use some advice of people who have already traveled that path. And these guys want to share their information. They want you to be able to get through this process as smoothly as possible. And they're willing to share the mistakes that they made and their advice to be so successful. So we hope you'll join for that one as well. We will be sending out a questionnaire on this fairly shortly on today's webinar. Please let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. Hopefully you won't mention the audio because we know about that one. If you have any suggestions for future topics, we're always looking for ideas. HAI is a member-based organization. We want your feedback too. So if you have any ideas what HAI could do better, let us know, please. The easiest way to do that is to send Jim Viola, our president and CEO, an email and letting him know what you think that we should be doing differently or better. Want more industry news? I mean, I don't know, you can see here, it's about as fresh as it gets. We do try to provide plenty of news through our Rotor services. Rotor Daily is a daily news aggregate. It is usually 10 to 15 stories, maybe up to 20 stories of all the rotorcraft, AAM, safety, educational news that's going on in the industry. It's one spot, one stop. You don't have to go looking for it. We'll send it right to your email box. You can subscribe to that at rotor.org/subscribe. We also produce quarterly an award-winning Rotor magazine. Lots more in-depth stories, things that you're not going to see in Rotor Daily necessarily right away, but we try to put that up too. The subscription to the print magazine is free. The subscription digital version is free. Unless you live outside the US, then for the print magazine, we do charge a small charge just to cover the cost of postage. Both of them are worthwhile. You can sign up for both at rotor.org/subscribe. That does conclude our webinar for today. We are grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule to join us live from Cologne. I hope you are fly safe, you be safe, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.